Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We review anything and everything. Today we're just getting into a little bit of a Lego rant. So if this kind of video is not for you, it's fine. You could pass over it. I'm just kind of really having fun right here with this video. And essentially what we're getting into is, so I one day was just kind of having the thought before in the current Lego kind of new sets coming out in the community. They recently started bringing out some older space sets, like they brought out the Blacktron. And it's funny because before they did that, I had this idea in my head that kind of, I was part of the era of some of the older retro space sets that they used to have, like M-Tron, Blacktron, Space Police, and Ice Planet and whatnot. And I just kind of had this idea one day while I was thinking about Lego stuff and kind of like, hey, what if they kind of dove back into that space? And I actually reached out to them, but unfortunately I didn't have maybe a email to some kind of corporate, whatever the case is. So it went on deaf ears. But I had this idea of them reinventing the space theme, but kind of with a little bit twist to it, and not just the way that it used to be, but incorporating a lot of the new things that they've learned from the Star Wars sets, and essentially going very hard with this kind of creation of creating not only an enhanced theme of those space themes they used to have, but also really giving them a background story, so that way they're not just simply just kind of these just baseless themes that don't have any kind of direction or what's going on with them, and you're left to assume what's actually going on with them and how they're operating. So what came to my mind was, first, similar to the way that every set has its instruction booklet, including a small booklet that would show maybe 10 pages that would show like a little story or whatever the case is, something that might just kind of give this kind of sense of what's going on in the background of things. And so the idea that I had, and I'm going to go from the little story elements to like some design concepts that I had in my mind. I'm not going to be able to build everything out on it like that, but just show you like little tidbits using some pieces to kind of demonstrate within on here and whatnot, and some drawings, bad drawings, but just kind of little base sketch stuff. But essentially the storyline would be, kind of in this modern day, I don't think you want to make any particular faction to seem like the bad guys, because I think it kind of would be a little unfair and send the wrong message, especially in these modern times where people are very much influenced by certain things, to send that wrong message. So the idea would be that Space Police are viewing Blacktron as the enemy, but Space Police is kind of this military fleet with a bunch of ships, really developed their line. And the story behind them is they're trying to keep order in the world, similar to the Galactic Empire. But then Blacktron, their viewpoint is the Space Police, in their structure of trying to have control, are suppressing the freedoms of people who don't want to be a part of this kind of more structured system. So they're a little bit more like the rebels, and they're not necessarily the bad guy. They're just perceived that way by the Space Police, and they perceive the Space Police as the bad guys because they're trying to have this more, this freedom. And so it creates a dynamic where they're opposing factions, but neither one is necessarily the bad guy. They're just different views. In between that, you would have space explorers, or exploration. And that will cover the general theme for not only that kind of generic space figure that you used to have back in the days, that they kind of rekindled in the new space line they have now. You would make that kind of line, except instead of just making it this kind of generic kind of line, it's part of this kind of connected theme. And that would have underneath its umbrella of subcategories, you would have of the space exploration. You kind of think of them a little bit akin to Star Trek, where they go on exploration. They do, their purpose is just exploring the different worlds, exploring different alien species, and they'll have other intelligent alien species. Maybe they'll make like a total of like 4 different species to populate like this this kind of space universe, just so it doesn't get too crowded, but it also is, different intelligent life. And in the space exploration theme, you'll have subcategories of space explorers, Mtron, Space Explorer's ice planet, for different technologies that they develop or different locations that they go to, and that will fall into that general collection of they aren't necessarily on the side, they're neutral. And any set that you might want to build that has, like, say, like a based on a planet that they might go to, that will have a city in a certain planet, could also fall underneath the moniker of Space Explorers, just in terms of the box material or whatever, if they just use that as the default. So as far as the Space Police goes, what I came up with in my mind was a layout of and hopefully you guys can see this pretty well, but I don't have any extra lighting on because I'm just doing this very casual. But so you would have 3 main ships, and the idea would be them launching out a wave for the Space Police, for Blacktron, and for the Explorers, Space Explorers, and they would launch a certain amount of things that give enough that it makes you feel like you have a full collection to buy. So for Space Police, you'd have 2 large ships, whether you want to call them dreadnought ships or whatever you want to call them, classify them as, but huge ships, and then one that's going to be a lot smaller, which is going to be the drop ship. Now, the idea is, first and foremost, is a simplistic layout. So that's why you see it like this. They'll have a big, if you're familiar kind of with the design of, say, the Ice Planet's major ship back in the days, because I actually had that when that was the only big ship I ever had. I did have a small Space Police ship as well, but the back of that was pretty big. I wouldn't say it got necessarily thin in the center, but a little bit thinner. And then the front had the 2 detachable little front kind of ships, or hubs that had that kind of long, they've used this piece all the time, those long glass pieces that really take up a lot of space, and you can only fit one person in the cockpit, but yet it's so big. You'd have a similar design like that, except obviously change things a little bit to be more focused in terms of practicality and having space, in interior space. So the interiors will be designed a little bit more like the way you would say a modular building or something like that, where it's about space, or even one of the city sets, houses, where it's about space and practicality first and foremost. Then next comes that simplistic design that they used to always do for those ships. And I say simplistic because they were never as detailed or crazy as, say, the Star Wars ships, which focus on the appearance more than they do the practicality and interior space. These will be focusing on interior space first, with like certain rooms inside them, certain interior details that are practical. Like I said, comparable to like a Lego City house, where it's like you need to have a place to sleep, you need to have a bathroom, you need to have these certain things in them first and foremost, and that will be the focus. Then after that, it would be having that simplistic design. And then later in the last part of the budget, after you kind of build up most of the base of it, then comes some extra external details if you have anything left in the budget to do. So that way, that's the order of prioritizing it. So that way, like I said, the most important thing is having that space, because space is inside the ship, because the idea is that, it could be something fun for kids to play with, but also collectors could get into, and, maybe amass armies, and they got places to be on the ship. So where you see things like Star Wars is heavily detailed with a bunch of parts in them, but yet it's like sometimes they don't have a lot of space inside them. They're not really as usable. And I say that to say those old ships back in the days in the space line for Lego never had a lot of pieces. Some of them were like 400 pieces, and they were still pretty big ships, but they didn't have a lot of interior space because they always just have one cockpit, a little open area. Now you can kind of build it differently. So that's the whole point of this. So the capital ship would be one where it's big in the back, and I'm going to actually read through some notes I have that describes how it would be kind of set up. And that's the way it would look visually. They would have a capital ship, they would have a fighter ship, and then a drop ship. So the capital ship would essentially be having a bunch of high rank crew members. It's really just for the purpose of, like, this kind of high-ranked military people who were there. So like you might only have one of those ships where it's like a bunch of like the leaders. They wouldn't be named characters, but it would still just be high-ranking based on the outfits that they're wearing and whatnot. So the idea that I thought of as far as that design would be for the main capital ship would be, you know, a large ship with high-ranking crew members. I'm kind of reading this off my notes, but large design with extra rooms and beds that will kind of focus in the back area here. A lot of like extra rooms and beds, in a weapons room somewhere inside the back as well. And a front bridge. So this area would be wide because the middle area gets a little slender. You might have some like rooms there as well for the higher rank members. This would be like a set that would come with like maybe like 10 or something like figures, maybe 10 or like, you know, 15 figures. The idea would be you taking those old sets that you used to have that were like 400 pieces in those big ships and now giving them a budget of like, say, $150 and having the piece count that you have in these Star Wars ships now, which is like 4 times as much as that, maybe 1,400 pieces. But by having it as a simple design, it's not going to have these little pieces and these little intricate whatever. It's going to be big. So with that, the center area might have some like more specialized rooms for higher ranks, and the back area might have like some more rooms. But then the front area is going to be a bridge like area, and I'm going to kind of like make a little kind of design out of something similar to that on this board here. And then also you would have mini guns on top, like rotating ones, because this capital ship is going to be armed to the teeth. So on the outside of it, you're going to have the rotating stud shooters and, you know, things of that kind of sort. Various other different guns on it, similar to like the way the Onyx Cinder ship was for Star Wars, the Lego version, where it's got all these guns on it, and it'd be like that. There's also going to be a prisoner ship. It would have the same similar design, so I didn't draw another one, but there would be a prisoner ship, except the prisoner ship would have many cells in it, the same way that the Space Police always had like these little prison cells. But instead of having these little individual cells, the back area here would just be full of cells going all around it, and in the middle you'd have like a table. So the front will be a guard area, kind of like in the middle front area right here will be like a guard area. A command area would be in the center. So like right here in the center of the back area would be, no, I'm sorry. So the front area would be the command area. So that would be up here where you'd have like the, like kind of the bridge, but instead it's just a command area. It's not going to be like a bridge necessarily set up, because this is really just a couple of pilots, maybe like 2 or 3 people flying the ship. Then in the center area, you'll have like bunks along the side area. So that's why this area is a little thicker than the ship you're going to see here, because it's a little different. You'd have like a couple of bunks on the side area. And then on the rear would be the cells aligning all around. And in the center area would be a little desk there with like a guard sitting there, and he's in the middle of it, surrounded by the cells all around it. So that to me is a simple design that, like I said, is practical. The cells will be filling all around it, and they'd be small cells. They'd probably be the equivalent of, I'm gonna pull out an example size of what that would look like. So each cell might be something along the lines of like that size right there. And essentially you would have things like, and this is going to be a long video, so don't mind you guys. I'm just having fun with it. So don't mind the fact that we're just kind of relaxing here. Like I said, it's just a fun little rant. If you guys are not into this, it's fine. So each cell might be something like this, and this is like your standard bed size. And obviously we'll make small beds like this. These are like my kind of Star Wars type of beds, which are simple, practical, and you know, you kind of get the idea. But yeah, so it would be something like that where that would be let me just grab a minifigure just to have on hand really quick. And do I have my, no, I don't. So let me just grab any old person just to kind of demonstrate really quick. And this is one of my custom guys I bought when I bought a couple of just random pieces recently and put them together off Lego thing. So, so you'd have your guy there, maybe sitting inside a cell area, depending on if the walls are like, if you have those maybe walls where it doesn't have, what are those? Those kind of indented wall pieces. You guys are familiar with what I'm talking about, where you can put some Lego figure right next to them and they're not a flat brick, so it allows the arms to go in. In that case, you can put the bed close to the side. If not, then you could just put them in the center like that. But either way, you get the idea. It's not taking up a lot of space, so you can have a few of them just kind of going all the way around the space. And I would want something longer than these studs here, but I'm going to demonstrate all these kind of things in a few. So that would be the setup for that. And then the fighter ship one, and that would be like this, would have the front area will have a main bridge with a wide spread. So I'm just kind of reading this from my notes. So maybe about 12 studs wide inside the front. And it would have like a layout of, and I'm going to end up making that layout of also demonstrating that, but it would have a layout of seats that kind of form this kind of bridge, similar to the way it maybe was in like Star Trek. We'd have maybe 5 seats all near each other, almost like an arrow kind of formation, where the front seat is the, almost like that. And it's like the front seat is the captain, and it spreads out with the other seats near it. And you'd have a slender neck area. So the slender neck area would only be about maybe 4 studs wide, which would be here. And the purpose of that would be, it would only be about 4 studs wide. You might have like a little computer table in it, walking down the hallway. Nothing major, something just like a brick like that with a little computer thing dash on it maybe. And, you'll have a person standing next to it in the hallway. And each side going like that, side to side, would have 3 on each side, little fighter ships. And they'll be tiny, but the point of them is to simulate this vibe of like, it's a carrier drop-off ship. Let me see. Got some other parts here. And like I said, I'm gonna demonstrate this laid out on this platform in a little bit, but you'll have something like that. It might have like a little tiny wing attached to the side, a little kind of, not one of those long kind of clear glass pieces like in the old days, but they'll make it a lot smaller. And that would be like the size of the ship. That would be your little fighter ship. And you're compressing this to have this kind of natural scale for the line, where it's like smaller ships are supposed to feel small next to the bigger ships, and they work in terms of a practical manner. So that's the point of that. So yes, you'll have that kind of practical sense where it's like, okay, that's the size of a fighter ship. So if we had a larger craft, it's gonna feel massive in regards to that. Let's see. So in the back area, you would have a large. Okay, so then the slender neck area, which it says like about 4 studs of interior space and maybe about 6 studs overall space. And then at the back is kind of this large area here. And the rear will consist of bunks in it. You'll have a weapons room. You'll have other additional spaces, maybe a break area or like a little kind of, maybe a desk or like a counter that has like food. You just have to make one little desk counter. It doesn't even have to be big. You see some like little kitchen sets in Lego now for like some of the modular sets where like you'll have like a table that's like just that long with like a little like food on it or something like that. So maybe you can make it a little bit longer, like 8 studs long. And a guy behind it who's just serving food and stuff like that. And then like a little repair section or like, like another little table that has like tools on it and a guy who's there for repairing stuff. All that could fit inside the back section, which is going to be pretty big. As far as the sleeping areas, where I mentioned there's bunks back there, you'll have things like bunk beds. Now I did this before. There he goes. I was looking for this as my little figure to display. My little fake Dash Rendar figure. He's a Han Solo with red hair. But you see this bunk design here. Now having something like this, you could have a few of these I've got 2 of them made up, but you can see how little space that takes up. So say if you had an area in that back portion, which might be however many studs wide, maybe it's that wide, however, and I'm going to map it out on this to show you how many studs wide that could be. But you could have, obviously it'd probably need to be a little bit wider than this, but essentially, you got an area, a small room that can have bunks on it that, for the most part, you're fitting 4 people right there. And then, you can have an alternating kind of thing where it's like, yeah, it's only 4 bunks, but the rest of the crew is awake manning the ship when the other crew is sleeping, and then vice versa. So that would be the setup for that. And like I said, the center would be these little ships that break away from the side. They'll clip in like with those Technic pins, the same way that the modular sets do, or how they used to, like with the Ice Planet ship, the front little modular ships would click in from the front. You could take them out and you'll have 3 of them, maybe 4 if you could squeeze them on there, on the sides. And that will be the equivalent of these ships having drop ships, like these fighter ships. And if they go to man your stations, they jump in their little ship and they just take off. And of course he didn't land on there correctly, but just imagine he's sitting down, they didn't want to do all the work, but he just jumps in his little ship and he takes off, and that would be it. There you go, a sitting down demonstration. But it would be like that. You have a little thing over his head, really tiny little control panel sitting right in front of him, nothing major, and little wings on the side, like I said, a little dome piece, and that's it. That's all it's going to be for the fighter, because the idea is when you have a squadron of these coming off this ship, you'll have like 6 of them and they're just all swooping around, the little guns on the side. It would be nice, but it's that concept of scale. It's that concept of that what you're getting, practicality with it for this line. And then the last ship would be the drop ship. So essentially you'd have a ship that's not too big. It might be somewhere about like that big. It'll have like a little front area for like maybe 1 pilot. It doesn't have to be much. And in the base of that, and when I'm making that size there, that might be the equivalent of, we'll say, let me get a couple of studs too, a couple of bricks just to kind of show what that space is looking at. Maybe something like about maybe like that wide there. Maybe something like this. And then you got a couple, like wings on the side, little front nose piece area right there. And like I said, wings coming on the side here. And then you would have like just, got a couple of chairs here. Just in the inside, a very simple interior. It's not about being crazy, but I gotta move that up from the back because it's hitting that piece there. And of course, nothing wants to click down when I want it to click down, but look at that. And here you got a very simple drop ship design. Now, it would be better if you had those kind of wall panels, like I mentioned before, where the walls get indented, so you could put these chairs to place them right against here. But nonetheless, you get an idea of how that would look. And that would just be a very simple build, but it's a drop ship. You got the guy in the front cockpit area, this right here. And maybe if it's a little bit longer than this, you could put one of those old Space Police jail cells they used to have. You could make one big one like that, or you could be divided into 2 separate ones, but you could just make one like that. And it could be a drop ship with cells, or you can make it not a drop ship with cells. Instead, this could be a little room that has like, you don't even need a full room, but it'll be a whole weapons row all along here. So maybe the length of the ship will extend to about that far back. And right here would just be like a counter with just a bunch of weapons. So the dropship guys can just get in there, load up their weapons, and they just get launched off. It would come with like maybe like 6 figures. I'm sorry, like 7 figures. And great. The idea of this focus is simplicity for this line, but practicality. So look at that. You'd have 7 figures coming with this set. This would be a set that's probably like $40 or something like that, because it's not, connected with any franchise, whatever the case is, or any kind of whatever. And that would be awesome. very simple design. Like I said, first comes the practicality, then comes the simplistic design they always had. Then if you have any extra budget, throw a little bit of greebling on there, throw a little bit of details on there if you can. And that would be the design for that. And now I'll get into some of the other things in a bit, but first, mapping out some of those other ships, like I said, and I'm just gonna have fun with it. Let's say this is gonna be a long video, so don't mind, guys. If you're just here for the fun of it, it's all good. If not, if this video is not for you, I totally understand. So, as far as, like I mentioned before, the and Blacktron will have similar setup, maybe their own kind of capital ship, and maybe their own version of a fighter ship that might be slightly different. They might have a drop ship as well. You can kind of mimic most of the same things. They're not going to have a prisoner ship, obviously, so they'll probably have less ships, maybe 3 ships instead of like the initial 4 that Space Police will have. But nonetheless, you know, it will have a similar design, maybe just look a little bit different just for the aesthetics of it. Now, as far as like, how long would a ship like these be? I'm going to start at about here. And we'll do here now. Not sure. Let me count up how many studs that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 44. 41 studs. I think that's not that bad. We've had ships that are longer than that from Star Wars, ships that are way more whatever. That's not bad. We're gonna see if we can work with that in terms of the size. Now we're gonna do that first initial capital ship, prisoner ship kind of, you know, setup and see what can we squeeze into that. So let's see how wide we are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's do an even number and just come down like that. Yeah, so now we're 16 with 14 interior. So just to give a roundabout, we're gonna, like I said, make the back base area pretty wide. Now, I might end up having to be bigger than this in terms of the studs and everything like that, but we're just going to go with this kind of example for now and kind of just like play around with it a little bit. I might end up having to break this video into 2 separate parts, but we'll see. Now, like I said, we're going to get, I'm going to take some of these here that I have, put them off to the side. Those are some chairs. I'm going to take some of these little beds and put them off to the side too. I'll be using them in a little bit. And what are we gonna do? So I am going to take a couple of more black pieces just to kind of section things off. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna come inwards about here maybe. I'm just randomly eyeballing this stuff, so don't mind that it's not necessarily exactly. This would be. So this one, we're not going to come in as closed because the capital ship is a little thicker in the middle. And the reason for that is because it doesn't have the drop ships on the side, where the other one has the drop ships. I mean, not the drop ships, the fighter ships. So we'll go like this to show its general length of that part. And then like we'll make this right here where it gets a little bit bigger. Now I really, we would probably have to make this a little longer than this, but you know, we could always make the front kind of fat. It doesn't have to actually come to a cone at the front, like an abrupt cone. So that's relatively fine. So you see here that general shape. So now let me try to even these things out a little bit. Now I don't know. Here, these align. Yep. So So you're looking at, like I said before, on the widest part here, I think it's at 14 interior. In here, it's not as wide, but nonetheless. So you got that general shape that you're looking at right there. I'll twist it a little bit so you could kind of see it like that. And that would be pretty much the framing of a ship. You would have these, you could use plates, whatever you got to do to make that, like how Lego would do it. And I think it would be great. Now, as far as that first design, like I said, I'm not going to quote exactly the same way it was completely. But for example, you could have maybe a tiny little room. And what I'll do is I will frame out the room with these here, just to give a sense of that. Let me see how well that works. Okay, so this would be a little too wide. So what we do is I will take a couple of more. You know what I'll do? I have a couple of white bricks laying around. I'm gonna take them and we're gonna frame these out a little bit where we'll go. So this is the area where it comes out and maybe it stops here. So we'll go like here and we'll have maybe that there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so what we would be able to do is say if we had that like there. Now, like I said, on the side walls, what they would do, just to kind of make things work even better, is we would have those kind of walls that go inwards. I know you guys know the ones I'm talking about where, say if it's like 4 studs tall, 4 bricks tall, and then it indents. You know, obviously I don't know the name of the piece, but I know they call them wall pieces, I think. So you would have something like this. And the length that it would come out on each one, I'm not gonna show for each particular room area, but maybe it would have like this. And then these ones will come out that same way. So I'll just mimic one other side just to show the length. Like that. And, you know, we'll have that in the center as like a hallway area. So we'll have the wall come straight across like that. As much as I don't want to build it all up, but at the same time, I feel like I kind of gotta just to kind of give that sense. So it would be like this. And like I said, it doesn't have to be nothing too crazy detailed, but you got your little, and these would be like the captain's quarters over here, or like the main top guy's quarters. Where's the other bed I had? Like over here. And each one will kind of be similar to this with like a little doorway. Maybe you got the hallway in the middle. So maybe these might have to come out a little bit more to make that hallway a little better if you needed to. But nonetheless, a thin hallway is fine. Have the main quarters there. Maybe back here, you could have a small kind of room that has like extra bunks or something like that. However, it would be done like maybe something like that for one area. And say if that room was kind of somewhat made out to fit. That's not great, but you kind of get the point where it's like we got, these bunks are for like the regular, you know, guys and whatever the case is. And then over on the side here, we would have like I said, we probably have like a little station over here for something. So at this point, you're not going to get too crazy with these little substations, but you know, you'd have like a guy here with a table full of stuff. Like, for example, what did I say would have been in here? So like I said about having a conference room, we can't really squeeze that in here like this, even though the truth is I'm going small with the size. We could actually make this even bigger if Lego was, you know, really, you know, like putting that that extra budget in there, I'm sure you could make this even bigger than that, because this is very kind of small in relation to that. But you get the idea. What I'm trying to show is putting a lot of things in it, you know, where maybe this right here would have, you know, like I said, you have like, this could be like maybe a person with food and stuff like that and drinks or something like that, you know. So let me just pull something out real quick that would cater to that same notion. Here you go, a little drink kind of thing on the table, one of these kind of little water bottles and stuff like that. Water cans, but you get the idea. He's here serving up the people. This will be like cut off to where like it's closed off with doors, if you can have it like that, or like walls, and they have the little bunks for the regular guys. This is like the higher captain's area. This would be the, you know, the bridge. So you would have something like that, and you would have something like I said, similar, almost like one of those kind of Star Trek or something like that, those space movie type of setups where like it gets, you know, something like that, where maybe like, I don't know, it kind of gets wider as it goes back. And then you put like a little, maybe like red carpety area right here that makes it look like they walk out to that. And this person's seat right here will be like maybe elevated. So he's not just like that. His thing is like maybe sitting upwards, or the reverse. You do it where these are up front. Comes in a little bit more, and then you've got this one here, and it's like that, you know, that kind of design that they would have on those kind of space shows. Something simple like that, but you see how that kind of works. And, you know, maybe back here you'd have a little control panel thing where like a little something there against the wall, but that's like really the main area. And they go back here, and then, you know, look at that. Look at all that kind of stuff you could see going on in there for like a ship. And like I said, they can even make this a little bit bigger. I don't even think they'd have a problem doing that. Make it a little bit longer, or if they didn't make it longer, make it a little wider. But you see those general proportions of, this is the fat back area. This right here gets a little thinner. And then right here, it gets, you know, it comes out like that. Now, if we were to do, like I said before, where we have this fighter ships one, and we'll remove these really quickly. Take those out. So you could have almost like the same front area, but the only difference now is we would make this, let's see, one, two, maybe come in about here, and this will come in about 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, about 6 studs wide is what I said, and about 4 studs of interior space. So maybe that's the hallway area. And maybe there's a person who has, you know, a seat here for the dropship one. So this is the fighter ship one, I'm sorry. So the fighter ship one, you don't need as many chairs inside the front, that big of a whole kind of setup. Maybe you've got like 3 chair setups. So you got the main person and then the 2 ones behind them. So that guy is like the main captain sitting in that seat. And then, you know, you have a little bit extra space here. There's like a little, maybe a hallway area where you got a guy here on a chair, or even just like one of these kind of control panel stations that are sitting there, you know, on one of these. Maybe it's just like that with one of those little control panel pieces right there. And then what you would have here is those fighter ships clicking right in just like that. Like I said, those little tiny fighter ships that wouldn't be any bigger than that. And you'd have them like that. And you would have, I don't have any more like that, but essentially you could fit like about 3 of them here. And then you'd have the same on that side. And that would be your little fighter ships. And so they would drop off once they come into the area. Like I said, back here, you'll put something like bunks, maybe a little like mess hall area, maybe a little weapons bracket or something like that, however you would do it. If you want the bunks like that, or you just want to have like a couple of just regular beds, however you want to do it, however they would do it. But you get the idea as far as that goes. So you can get a sense of that scale and the practicality. I definitely think it could be a little bigger, and I don't think it would go outside of that budget, but it's just to give you that reference. And like I said, the idea that this would be the standard of a fighter ship. They would even have sets that were probably like $5 that would just come with a person and a fighter ship. And the fighter ship's not going to be much more detailed than this. Some kind of covering, some small wings, little thrusters, little side guns, and that's it. Because the idea is supposed to be simple. You could army build them with a whole bunch of them really cheap. And that would be that. And like I said, similar would be the design of the ships for the Blacktron. Blacktron will have similar design ships. So that is that. I'm actually going to stop the video now, and then I'm going to do a part 2 of some of the other things that I had within this concept. So as always, you guys like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.